All right, let's jump right into this. When you think of Brazilian football, you probably instantly picture 5 World Cup stars, that iconic yellow shirt, and of course, the beautiful game. But today in this explainer, we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift. We're going to look at how the most legendary football nation on the planet has literally plunged into a historic crisis, and how their frantic search for a 6th World Cup title is forcing them to completely rethink their entire identity. To really understand the level of national angst in Brazil right now, you have to hear this absolute gut punch of a quote from Brazilian icon Ronaldinho. Right before the 2024 Copa America, he essentially declared his resignation as a fan. He came right out and said the current squad lacks grit, lacks joy, and is basically one of the worst teams he's seen in recent memory. I mean, when a legend who actually won the 2002 World Cup, a guy who literally embodies the spirit of Brazilian football, turns his back on the team, you know for sure the situation is dire. And honestly, the panic? It's completely justified by the numbers. 28. That is the startling number of points Brazil managed to scrape together in 18 games during their qualification campaign. They ended up finishing a shocking 5th in the CONMEBOL table. Historically, Brazil absolutely breezes through South American qualifying, but this time, it was officially the worst qualification campaign in their entire storied history. Section 1. The Fall of the Seleção, the Qualification Crisis. So, unpacking the hard data behind this slump, we can objectively see the sheer scope of their struggles on the road to the 2026 World Cup. The Brazilian Federation cycled through 3 different managers in this campaign alone. Just wrap your head around that. And the away defeats were brutal, dropping crucial points to arch rivals Argentina and Uruguay, stumbling against Paraguay, and even losing 1-0 in the harsh 4,000-meter altitude of El Alto in Bolivia. They were consistently outplayed, they were physically overwhelmed in hostile environments, and they were breaking records for all the wrong reasons. Section 2. The Weight of History, Past Glory versus Present. To understand why these recent losses feel like a literal national emergency, we have to look at the timeline of expectations. For decades, the standard was set by Pelé's golden era, where Brazil won 3 World Cups between 1958 and 1970, playing this joyful, free-flowing football. Fast forward, and you have their 5th World Cup win in 2002 with the legendary 3 Rs, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. But right next to that glory is the unresolved, lingering trauma of 2014, that infamous 7-1 Minorasso defeat to Germany on home soil. That devastating loss completely shattered their aura, and the historic slump of 2024 and 2025, to a lot of fans, it feels like the lingering hangover of that exact trauma. So the real crux of the issue here is the massive conflict between expectation and modern reality. Fans still fiercely demand jogo bonito, that beautiful, flamboyant, samba flair football. But the modern reality is a whole lot colder. Today's Brazilian talent is essentially intensive farmed by wealthy European clubs. The best players are exported in their early teens. Because of that, they're trained to prioritize tactical muscle, extreme pressing, and European discipline over that wild, arrogant creativity. The guys wearing the shirt today are fundamentally different from the street football magicians of the past. Section 3. Tactical Chaos and Talent, the Formation Problem. Now, you'll hear critics call this the worst squad ever, but the data actually suggests the issue isn't a lack of talent at all. It's a lack of structure. Just compare the forward line of the 2014 squad, which, let's be honest, featured relatively average attackers like Fred, Bernard, and Joe, to the current 2026 forward line. Today, Brazil boasts some of the most elite world-class attackers on the planet. We're talking Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. and Endrick, and Barcelona's Rafinha. The individual firepower is just astonishing. So what gives? Why aren't they winning? Well, the root of the problem lies in Brazil's dreaded 4-2-4 formation. If you look at how this breaks down, there's a massive allocation for the forwards, while the presence of midfielders and fullbacks is dangerously thin. Because they have so many superstar attackers, recent managers have basically tried to cram them all onto the pitch at once. They heavily load the top of the pitch, which completely starves the midfield of bodies and structure. And this top-heavy approach, it leads to pure tactical chaos. You end up with an overwhelmed 2-man midfield that simply cannot shield the defense. The front line becomes totally disconnected from the back line. They end up relying way too heavily on players like Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes to basically do the running of 4 men, all while aging fullbacks like Danilo and Alexandro are forced to cover impossible amounts of space. It's a broken system, and opposition teams easily slice right through it. Section 4. The Ancelotti Era, a Pragmatic Approach. Realizing the ship was taking on water fast, the Federation made a historic move to bring in Carlo Ancelotti. But actually, his arrival is highly controversial for traditionalists. Why? Because he is completely abandoning the romantic Joga Bonito myth. Instead, he's importing cold, hard, Real Madrid-style European efficiency. He favors pragmatic, results-oriented tactics. He wants lightning-fast transitions and coordinated pressing, effectively phasing out that individual flamboyance in favor of rigid discipline. He doesn't really care about the flair. He just cares about getting the business done on the pitch. To enforce this new discipline, Ancelotti is leaning heavily on trusted veterans. Listen to how he describes midfielder Casemiro, noting that he brings characteristics no other Brazilian player offers. Ancelotti relies on him to anchor that fragile midfield and stop the bleeding. Casemiro even calls himself an Ancelotti soldier. The new mandate is crystal clear. Prioritize defensive stability over trickery. Stop conceding goals first and worry about entertaining the fans second. Section 5, Echoes of 2002. History repeating. While the media and the fans are currently in a state of absolute despair, a close look at the history books shows us Brazil has walked this exact tightrope before. Look at how incredibly identical these two qualification cycles are. Back in 2002, just like today, Brazil went through 3 different managers. They faced massive criticism after embarrassing friendly matches. They suffered qualifying losses in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia. And they had a massive star, Ronaldo back then, Neymar today, recovering from a major injury and entirely written off by the press as being over the hill. The 2002 campaign felt just as disastrous as this one does right now. And yet, how did that supposedly disastrous 2002 run end? With a pragmatic Brazilian team holding the trophy in Yokohama, Japan. Ronaldo came back to win the Golden Boot, and Brazil proved that sometimes abandoning the immense pressure to play beautiful football is literally the only way to actually win the tournament. So as we look toward the 2026 World Cup, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Will Brazilian fans finally accept the death of Joga Bonito? If Carlo Ancelotti's cold, calculated European efficiency brings home that elusive 6th star. The talent is definitely there, the manager's in place, but the very soul of Brazilian football hangs in the balance. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on the Solucio.